To all you wogs and fellow free thinkers out there, freedom fighters in Foxian masks, and anyone from the Church of Scientology that might be watching. Hello there. Crazy Delaney here, coming at you once again. And, kind of the big news today, saw this on a thread on inturbulation.org that Tommy Davis did an interview with CNN this morning. I did not see it, but I did hear about it, and kind of wanted to do some reaction to it, as I'm watching it here. So I'll go ahead and do that. Here we go.
We're going to get reaction now from a representative of the Church of Scientology. Tommy Davis is a spokesman for the...
Tommy! Great to see you again. I hope you're doing well, and I hope the RPF wasn't too harsh.
Church, and he joins us live now from our Los Angeles bureau. Mr. Davis, thanks for getting up early.
Okay. Just first of all, just watching this here, Tommy Davis looks like 1,000 pieces of chewed bubblegum that just got ran over by a semi-truck being driven by a sleepy trucker who's being kept awake by Red Bull, No-Dose, and an audiobook of Dianetics. Now, that's a very complicated, extravagant way of saying that Tommy Davis looks terrible. He looks out of it. And of course there were those rumors that he disappeared into the Rehabilitation Project Force after that debacle with John Sweeney and that BBC Panorama program. Now I don't know if there's any truth to that, but Tommy Davis looks seriously off his game, and I worry a little bit about his mental health, about what he may have been put through, because he definitely was not on David Miscavige's good side after that situation with John Sweeney. I thought Tommy Davis was a huge jerkwad on that special, and I wanted to punch him. I'll admit that. Wouldn't do it. I wanted to. But he's a human being, and that he may have been treated very harshly and inhumanely does not sit right with me at all. Now, I don't know if it happened, but the guy looks terrible. The other thing to note, and I think this is curious, at least to me, this interview is taking place at 4:30 in the morning for this guy, if I'm not mistaken. Well, I forget. It's early. It's early, maybe about 5:30. The only thing that really doesn't make sense to me is they didn't have a spokesperson on the East Coast to do this interview. It makes me think that David Miscavige is still a little pissed at Tommy. And, make of that what you will, but I think it's a little odd that he looks like somebody just burst into his room, put him in a suit, and drove him down to the station to put him on TV. But who knows? I could just be reading too much into it, but here we go.
Church of Scientology refers to Anonymous as a group of cyber terrorists. They say they're simply protesting the church and that they're harmless.
John, the reality on it is that in our case, we're dealing with things like, 96 death threats, bomb threats, acts of vandalism, these kinds of things that are very destructive and very harmful. And we have to take measures on our part to ensure the protection of our facilities and our parishioners and their physical well-being as a general rule. When you're talking about this group and referring to them as cyber terrorists, these are the kind of people who, put together imagery intended to cause epileptic seizures and then hacking into the Epilepsy Foundation's website.
Now, I can't believe you just said that. He is actually repeating the accusation that the same group that is appearing outside of Scientology's facilities all over the world is also the same group of cold-hearted bastards who decided that they were going to try to cause a bunch of epileptic seizures. This is truly, utterly, epically, with a capital P, pathetic. As Steve Urkel from Family Matters would say, and you ought to listen to Steve Urkel, that puts the ink in pathetic. Now, I don't know who did the raid, whatever you want to call it, on that epilepsy forum, but it's absolutely despicable, absolutely disgusting, and I'm sure any anonymous with a conscience would condemn it. And I do know that the parties that perpetrated that attack call themselves anonymous. It was done anonymously, but Mr. Davis, are you going to blame these groups of protesters, for, well, anonymous scrawlings on a bathroom wall that tell people to call Jenny for a good time? Are you also going to blame them for every piece of terrible poetry ever written? Come on, Tommy. Come on. You can do better than that, can't you?
And throwing it up there, trying to cause people to have epileptic seizures. And they do these kinds of things for laughs.
Now,
And they say this themselves.
You are leveling these accusations at this group. The FBI, which is looking into it, says it has found nothing to connect this group anonymous with what you're talking about, or death threats against members of the church. The FBI at this point says it has no reason to believe that charges would be leveled against this group.
Now, Tommy's expression at this point is priceless. He doesn't know how to respond. The reporter says, "Oh, the FBI hasn't tied them to this," and it's just this great deer in the headlights look that I'm sure did not make David Miscavige happy. Now, I don't know where Tommy is on the bridge, but if he's an OT, is this a good example of an OT? Is this a good example of Scientology communication courses that work here? Is it? Is this an example of great Scientology communication here? I mean, is he communicating really well with John Roberts here? Oh, you be the judge.
Well, I disagree, and that's definitely not the case. I mean, you talk to local law enforcement, you talk to the Justice Department, there are definitely ongoing investigations. But, really the issue is that these things happen, we report them to law enforcement, it's really in the hands of law enforcement to prosecute them for their hate crimes, and we leave it to them for that. From our standpoint, we're carrying on. I mean, the worldwide interest in Scientology has never been higher. I mean, Scientology's grown more in the last 5 years than the last 5 decades combined. You have 7,700 churches, missions, and groups, and an enormous amount of interest in Scientology and what we do. So we're interested in putting true information out there. People can find out for themselves what it is, which is really what they ought to be doing. Is you can walk into a church, you can see what Scientology is, you can go.
Here it is again. This old line about really the only way you can decide for yourself when it comes to Scientology is to go into an org, visit Scientology.org, or read a book by L. Ron Hubbard. That's the only way you can find the truth about Scientology. Well, you know what? To be quite honest, I would encourage everybody to check out as many books from the library by L. Ron Hubbard as possible and read them and find all the lovely quotes that you can and put them up everywhere